Hey there friends, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Andy, and today we're going to take a look at some of the questions answered by Creative Assembly and Feral Interactive on Total War Rome Remastered. So in the past few days, Creative Assembly and Feral Interactive have hosted a questions forum on their Discord channel, where users have been allowed to ask any questions they like and have them answered by a Feral Interactive or Creative Assembly employee. And this is really interesting because we actually get to have some of our most burning questions answered. So let's jump right into it. One big question is whether we can still be able to mod the campaign map, which allowed many massive mods, some of the best mods, to be made for the original Rome Total War. Tom from Feral says that yes, in some aspects, the new campaign map should be even more moddable or at least flexible to artistic and design edits, which is amazing. This is basically the basis of allowing mods like Roma Surrectum, Europa Barbarorum, and many other massive mods to be created for this game. Most likely, this will also allow other modders and new ones to create some completely new mods as well. Further, another massive question is whether we will have co-op campaigns online, which have become a staple of the Total War franchise. Sadly though, it does not look like that will be available, at least not to begin with. Edwin Smith from Feral Interactive says, no, the remaster doesn't have a co-op campaign. We are, however, very aware this is a popular and requested feature and have taken it into consideration. So at least that's kind of positive, isn't it? From the Let's Plays published on YouTube, we have kind of suspected up until now that the co-op feature is not available. At least though, it is a good sign that they know that it's a popular requested feature, and that might mean that in the future, we may, although I do have my doubts, that we might see a co-op campaign sometime. One very important thing for me is the question of arrow trails. And luckily, it looks like we will be able to turn them off and on at our leisure. We want to ensure the player can configure their version of Rome and opt into or out of changes as they prefer. So that's amazing news for people that hate those arrow trails. The question of adoption is asked as well, if they work the same way as they did in the original game. The answer is yes, adoptions work the same as the original game, and you can review and accept or reject potential candidates. However, in the original game, if your ratio of family members to regions owned goes past a threshold, the game will automatically accept the next candidate. We noticed this exact scenario happened on a YouTube stream, and it caused people to assume that the feature was removed when it wasn't. So that's interesting. Also, for fun's sake, is Man of the Hour still here? The answer is yes, which is a really cool feature that Rome and Medieval 2 had, but which I believe was removed after. For the question of other Total War Remastered, the answer is right out. We do not currently plan to remaster any other classic Total War games. Well, the emphasis there on currently, of course. So, yeah. Something that's really good is that we will still be able to go down to the city level and watch as our citizens walk around in peacetime. One interesting question is on diplomacy and what changes we will see. And the answer is yes, we have investigated and worked on campaign map AI and particular diplomacy. So, for example, negotiations now have a concept of long-term relationships, so factions can build up or lose trust with each other over multiple turns. And this is a mechanic that has been in later Total War games, but which I assume was not in Rome. The AI can also be more decisive when needed, and it's less likely to oscillate between two different objectives. You're more likely to be able to convince a small faction to become a protectorate, but they also have the ability to analyze the situation and may turn on you if they can see a better alliance could be made. AI will now attack across seas, which is good. Diplomacy updates with the concept of settling debt, both financial and territorial, and armies strategize better to form up into larger armies and coordinate attacks or formulate longer-term macro strategies. So that's really good for your massive wars and such. If the game will be supported post-release, the answer is yes. Rome Remastered will be supported post-release. We have a long history of supporting our games post-release with patches, and Rome Remastered will be no different. This question, however, is maybe directed towards if Rome will get any sort of expansions, and probably not just the patches. So, kind of obviously, I feel we will get patches for the game. The question is rather if it will be expanded. Another question here, has a single soldier and unit pathfinding been fixed? By single soldier pathfinding, I mean will the whole unit soldiers shuffle places when formation is slightly altered? And will the unit pathfinding be overall fixed, meaning the units will go straight where they're commanded instead of taking some weird round trip through the enemy phalanx? The answer, as with the campaign AI, we have made some alterations to battle AI. This is also something that will be toggleable. So for example, the phalanx formation has been realigned, tower and walls pathing has been improved, and the same with settlement breach point pathing. And very important, with respect to battle AI, we have improved specific self-contained behavior and made smaller incremental improvements to the overall experience, while avoiding side effects. We know there is a long list of AI behaviors that many of you might want to adjust, so this will be something that we'll be monitoring and taking into consideration. Which is very nice, because as we all know, some of the AI pathfinding in Rome is just atrocious and is more likely to get you killed than actually survive. In terms of optimization, the game is also being optimized to utilize multiple threads better. A question has been asked as to whether they will keep the original music, and the answer is that they have used an original copy of the original soundtrack and upgraded as many of the tracks as possible. I wonder what that means and if they have intended to change out the ones they haven't been able to upgrade, or if they have included them anyway. In terms of animations, the remaster still uses the same skeleton and animation systems as the original release, and this does impose limitations as to what can be done. It is important to note that game state and animations are linked. We wanted the remaster to feel like the original, and significant edits to this system would risk changing the gameplay or the combat timing drastically. With that said, we have spent time polishing and updating animations, as well as adding new animations where it would not impact gameplay. For example, mounted units now react to the motion of their mount, and units will now reflect their fatigue status, which I think is really good. Changing too much here would definitely make it not Rome Total War anymore, but something else. So I think a sort of decent balance here, hopefully, is what they have achieved. More on the music actually, the remaster has entirely new audio for some of the additional faction introduction videos, as well as merchant specific audio, diplomacy panel flavor audio, and the new tutorial has been fully voiced. And one major important thing for modding again, will the limit on factions, units and regions be removed or greatly expanded? The answer, yes, we are raising the limits from the original game to allow for more factions and settlements to be added to maps, with more information to come on this. We'll also be monitoring and keeping in contact with the modding community post-release with the help of CA's community team to see what features modders need to bring all their amazing mods to life and trying to support where we can. And this is amazing news combined with the ability to mod the map. This means that mods can be even bigger than before. We can have more factions, more cities, which will allow for a much bigger variety and probably not have that many rebel cities, especially at the beginning of a given campaign. And those were some of the most important questions answered by Feral Interactive, at least in my opinion. Of course, you can go and check this out for yourself on the Creative Assembly and Total War Discord, if there are any other questions you might have wanted answered. I really think this is a good initiative by both Creative Assembly and Feral Interactive, and I commend them for taking the time to answer, even though some questions, like the co-op campaign questions, might not be what everybody wanted. But you know what, that's bound to happen. Many of these answers I think were really good. What we know about modding now, that it will be fully customizable, or at least much easier in terms of faction and unit adding, in addition to map tiles, is extremely good to hear. Same with the removal of the arrow trails, especially for me. That's a big sell. If this video was helpful to you at all, then please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.